Hi, and welcome to the Rise Up and Roar podcast with Carrie Hurley. Is life chaotic and overwhelming? Do intrusive thoughts interrupt your day? Do you long for the abundant life that Jesus came to give you? Then, sister, you're in the right place. Here on the Rise Up and Roar podcast, we help you overcome overwhelm, navigate the negative, and redeem the courageous life that God has called you to live. My dear, you are powerful for the kingdom of heaven and dangerous to the system of darkness. It's time to rise up into your power, privilege, and place as a daughter of the King. Come, join me on today's episode. Hello and welcome to the Rise Up and Roar podcast. I am your host, Carrie Hurley, and I am thrilled today to be joined by the ladies of the Simple Homeopathy podcast. So my dear friend, Sandra Nardoni, is one of the ladies. She is the one that introduced me to homeopathy. I've done some trainings with her and have really found great success for my family, great help for my family using the tools of homeopathy. And so I was thrilled that she and Heather and Nicole would be able to join us today on the podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and let Sandra introduce Heather and Nicole to you and herself. And then we're going to jump into what homeopathy actually is. So Sandra, please introduce yourself and Heather and Nicole.
Well, thank you so much for having us on your podcast. I'm really appreciative. It's super fun. This is the first time we've been interviewed on a podcast, so it's kind of cool. I'm Sandra Nardoni, and I am, and all of us are practical homeopaths. It's a specific type of homeopathy and approach that we all went to the same school to learn. And this is my friend Heather Strickland and my other friend Nicole Pavlick. And like I said, we're all practical homeopaths. Nicole was also a nurse. So that's kind of an added bonus and an added layer of knowledge that we can bring to our trainings and things like that. And we're just really excited to be here. Just a little disclaimer that we always say before we start anything, everything that we say is education and educational in nature. None of it should be considered medical advice. If you would like some medical advice, you should go see one of your medical professionals, your favorite one. And we're happy to help you to educate you about how you can use homeopathy, but we are not medical professionals.
Okay, great to have that disclaimer out of the way. Okay, so here's the big question. What is homeopathy exactly? Because when I talk to people about homeopathy, they automatically go to home remedies, and I'm like, no, stop, dial it back. So exactly what is homeopathy?
Well, first of all, thank you for like understanding that. It's really great when people actually know that it's actually not that. Homeopathy is actually a system of medicine. It is not supplements, not botanicals, not herbals, not Ayurveda, not any of the essential oils, none of those things that people associate with natural health or holistic health. And so it is actually its own system of medicine. The medicines are created in homeopathic pharmacies. They're highly regulated so that they stay very consistent. Homeopathy does not have any side effects. So you're not going to have any long-term side effects with anything that you do with homeopathy. If the medicine isn't right for you, most likely it's just not going to work. But homeopathy medicines, if you choose the right medicine, it does work very well. And so it's our job as homeopaths to educate moms and grandmas to be able to use these medicines effectively, but they are medicines and they really should not be used other than in the instance of homeoprophylaxis, which is sort of an alternative to vaccinations. Other than that instance, you're not going to be using homeopathy as a preventative. It is something you only use if you have a pathology, if you are actually sick. And if you try to use it as a preventative, it's probably not going to do anything. So,
Right. It'd be a waste of your time and your resources for
yeah.
sure.
I'll let Heather and Nicole also kind of weigh in if I forgot.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to that, Sandra. It was such a beautiful explanation, but I do want to add that it is a natural medicine. So even though it's not all natural medicines, it still is made from natural substances. So I feel like that's a really important aspect of this for people that, want to stick to a holistic route or want to go a natural way. And one of the most beautiful things about homeopathy too is, and this is what I love, one of the reasons that I love it, is that it stimulates the body back into balance so that the body can do what it was meant to do, which is to heal. So we don't suppress, we don't force the body into anything like that. We're actually using the body's own ability to heal, by using these remedies. So I think that that's really important. And then one other thing that I just wanted to add to it is that if you are using conventional medicine or you have to use conventional medicine, this is actually a modality that we can use alongside of conventional medicine without it interacting with the conventional med. So just wanted to add that piece to it too.
Thank you, Nicole. Those are all really important things.
They are. And I will say about the not having any contraindications, that has been something that has been really good when I'm talking to people about homeopathics to say, I understand you are on these scripts. However, if you're adding this in, it's not going to interfere in a negative means. So that's really cool. Heather, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that definition explanation of homeopathy?
I think they pretty much covered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so here at Rise Up and Roar, a lot of us are moms that are dealing with overwhelm, and you know that overwhelm is often accompanied by anxiety. And then also everybody has trauma in their lives, whether it's capital T trauma or little t trauma, we all have traumas. So is there a particular way that homeopathy can help us with the anxiety that can come from overwhelm or just that trauma response or depression that might go along with that?
Absolutely. You want to take that one? I can touch on some of the things that can help with anxiety, and then one of you guys can kind of jump in with some other things. Um, Again, because homeopathy is very gentle and it doesn't kind of barge in and take over, it's still allowing you to address that situation, address that anxiety, but with a much more natural way that is going to help you still work through things. It's not going to
Mm,
stop those emotions or stop those feelings like hitting a brick wall kind of thing. But over time, it just will gradually soften that. And just like I said, it's a very gentle way that it will help you be able to deal with those feelings and emotions um, without suppressing them. And I have a personal example from last week, if you'd like to hear it. Yeah.
oh yeah, do tell.
Yeah. So last week, I came to work on Thursday. I had another job. I have a full-time job and that I love with people that I love and a mission that I love. And I got to work on Thursday, had a great day, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Not my boss, but my boss's boss came in and said, "Hey, we need to talk to you." And I got laid off, along with a lot of other people, because of financial issues the institution is having. And that was absolutely devastating to me. I
Sure.
was so sad and so upset.
I'm
And
so sorry.
yeah, it was a bad week. 2 days prior to that, a very close friend had died really quickly of cancer. He was diagnosed 3 weeks prior, and then he died in 3 weeks after his diagnosis. So it was a really, really heavy week. So
Yeah.
it's already emotional because of that. And then I go and I'm laid off, and then the next day I have to go to a funeral. And it's like one thing after another after another. And I was just, really upset. So what was funny was on Friday. So I got laid off on Thursday. On Friday, I didn't really even feel like getting out of bed. And I was crying a lot. I would just walk into a room and start crying. And it was bad.
Mm,
And sometimes even when you are the person that knows, and this is a good example of how when you are being educated about things like homeopathy, the brain is such a complicated organ and it can get shut down by stress. And
Mhm.
suddenly the things you know are not the things you know anymore because you don't know anything
Right.
because your brain is so stressed out. And
Yeah.
since we're talking about anxiety, it's a really great, kind of a great segue into that. I was feeling so stressed out and so anxious and sad. And my husband came in and he was giving me a hug and he said, um, I was thinking this homeopath that I know told me that Ignatia Amara is a good thing that people can take when they're feeling really sad. And I was like, oh yeah. And around the same time, Nicole texted me and was like, have you taken Aconite? And I was like, no. And so
Mhm.
I immediately went to my homeopathic medicine cabinet, which is overflowing with like 300 remedies. And I took Aconite and then I took Ignatia. And I'm telling you what, there was almost immediate relief as far as like that really extreme heaviness just sort of lifted. I was still sad.
Mhm.
I still cried throughout the day. But after that happened and I had taken those two remedies, I actually was able to sit down at my desk and start looking through LinkedIn job postings and like just do a little bit of looking for other positions and stuff like that. And it was just a really um,
Mhm.
kind of a good example of how stress can shut down our brain. And when that
Mhm.
happens, sometimes we need other people in our lives to just sort of like bring us along.
Give you that little nudge.
Yeah. And so I'd like to
Mhm.
encourage, like, as we talk about this stuff, if you are a person that is like going through something, if you're a person that is one of Carrie's clients and you have been working through trauma, you are going to have moments of clarity when you're going to realize what the things are that might help you. During
Mhm.
those moments of clarity, please, please, please teach your family members what those things are that you need so
Mhm.
that they can support you in every way possible when you hit a brick wall and you just don't want to get up in the morning.
Mhm.
Because those are the moments that your brain isn't going to work no matter what anybody's taught you. I've been studying this for several years now. I have been seeing clients for several years now.
And have recommended those
Those exact
remedies.
things.
Right.
Somebody had
Mhm.
come to me as a client and said, I lost my job and I just can't seem to feel better, blah, blah, blah. Those are the two remedies I would have recommended. And it's like, it just went right out of my brain.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that is a big point I would like to make as far as that's concerned. And also that to just piggyback on what Heather said, that you're still going to feel things
And
with
you
homeopathy,
should.
which you should, because the body needs to feel, the body
Mhm.
needs to express, the body needs to, get things out. And so with
Mhm.
that, I don't know what, I'm sure Nicole might have something to add to that.
Yeah, so I've been blessed also with 7 children. So
Oh, wow.
while they're, a beautiful gift, it can be overwhelming sometimes, right? In the house,
Mhm.
it can be a little chaotic sometimes. And so I love that you're doing this topic for moms because often, as Sandra said, when you're busy in life, especially as a mom, or a caregiver in general, a lot of times we put ourselves last. So we know
Mhm.
this information, we know what we're supposed to do, but we forget to
Right.
do it for ourselves, right?
Mhm.
And so Ignatia, like Sandra had mentioned, it can be a really great remedy for that overwhelm feeling, not just for
Mhm.
grief or loss that she was experiencing with the loss of her job, but it can also be a really great remedy for that overwhelm feeling that you might be experiencing. And also how Sandra mentioned that said aconite, right? Aconite is a really great remedy that can help you with anxiety, but also stress that comes on suddenly, right?
Mm.
And this was kind of like a shock to her system. She wasn't expecting
Right.
to lose this friend and her job all in the same week, and it doesn't have to be as significant as that. It could just be every, day stress and anxiety and overwhelm that we feel. So these remedies can touch, different levels, right? It can,
Mhm.
these different feelings that we feel of stress and overwhelm can be trauma, like you mentioned in the beginning. It could be something as deep rooted as that, or it could just be everyday stress and anxiety. But
Mhm.
one of the other remedies that I wanted to just mention too is Gelsemium. So
Yes. Okay.
Gelsemium is really great for anticipatory anxiety. And this isn't
Oh.
just good for moms, right? Also
Mhm.
our children. Sometimes our children are experiencing these emotions. So I wanted to add in here at this point that homeopathy is also safe for children to use as well. So, we could use it as moms, but we can also, use it for our children as well. So,
And that's one thing we use it, the whole family, across the board. And I will say, Sandra, I've experienced that. So, my husband, something comes up with him. I'm like, hey, you need to take XYZ. My kids, okay, here's this for you to take. And then, I went down the steps and missed the last couple of steps. And my husband's like, have you taken anything? No.
you forget about us, right?
Exactly, exactly. And Heather, I appreciate that you shared that you still feel things, because we did have a season where a family member was on um, a medication for depression that starts with an X. I don't want to say it, but that one, there was no feeling whatsoever. They were an automaton, and it was a horrible experience for them and for the whole family. So to know that it kind of helps the body work through that, to where you still feel, but it's not as overwhelming and overpowering with that. And okay, so you guys are going to have to share just a little bit. I know it's not in the notes, but okay, the Latin names. I, it's any tips or tricks to make it through all of these Latin names? Ignatia, Aconite, which is also Aconitum napellus, and it can get a little confusing for those of us that are just jumping in.
That's actually the reason for the Latin, is to help avoid confusion. I know it's
Okay.
like it, but really it is, because the Latin is the same in any
every
country
language,
and
every
language. So
country.
it's like
Okay.
the common language with all of that, because I mean, like if it's in Spanish or if it's in Italian or it's in German, whatever, we all have different names for literally the same. Like arnica is going to be called something different in every language, but if it's called Arnica montana, that's actually not a very good one, because that wasn't very Latin.
Sound Latin. It is Latin.
It is, but it didn't sound Latin, and it wasn't that hard to pronounce. But it makes it so that it isn't confused.
It's universal.
Universal.
Yes. But a tip to make it a little bit easier is to not say the full word. So like aconite instead of aconitum napellus. Nux vomica, we call it nux. Like you just kind of shorten them down a little bit, and it makes it a little bit easier once you start to get the hang of it. And also, just if you have ones in your family that you use a lot, every family that learns homeopathy ends up having like 10 or 12 remedies that they just sort of use on a regular basis because they work. And those are the ones to start with.
Right.
Mhm.
Find out what those are, figure out what things are working for your family, and then try to get them, pronounced the way they need to be pronounced, and
Right.
them down to the way you want to shorten them. My kids make fun of me all the time with homeopathy because that's what my family does. They just make fun of me because I'm a good sport. And they have made up fake names for half of them that are like puns and all kinds of stuff. And like our whole family knows what they're talking about because they've made up completely fake names or, for things like nux vomica because it reminds them of something.
Right.
Because what does nux vomica remind you of?
Hmm.
So, it's like, so they're like, it just kind of playing around with the words and making fun, but it actually ends up working because
It helps you remember.
it helps you remember. And if they have an
Right.
issue and I'm like, remember, you need to take this remedy, and they'll repeat with their nickname what it is. I'll be, yep, that's the right one. you know
Mhm.
So yeah, I guess that'd probably be my biggest tip as far as like
Which
navigating things.
right, and that makes perfect sense. And Heather, understanding the reason as why it's in Latin, that helps me. Be like, oh, okay. So, if I go travel in Europe, I'm going to be looking for the same thing as, if I were looking at some all natural stores here in the States or ordering from Amazon or different places like that. So, okay, so we've hit, how homeopathy can help. We've hit some basic remedies for those of us who experience anxiety or overwhelm, depression, trauma. Okay, so you guys are great help. I know Sandra has helped our family so very much. And so I was wondering, do you have any educational freebies that could help anybody who's interested and kind of curious to get testing the waters in homeopathy? Blah.
Yes, actually we do.
Huzzah!
And it's amazing. How did you?
The birdie.
Right. So we actually have a freebie, a download that is sort of like I don't know, like a cheat sheet for different remedies that are really common acute illnesses and things like that. And you can get that by just going and putting your name and email in at simplehopeapathy.wellness.com. So the instead of home, it says hope at the beginning of that word. So
And
that's
we'll put it in the show notes so you
yeah.
can find it in the show notes so you don't have to remember. We
Yeah.
we'll make it easy for you.
Yeah. And also, just as an aside for that, and then I know you're probably going to ask about this anyway, but if you do that and go get the freebie, then you're going to get updates on the launch of our membership site, which is coming on Black Friday. I don't know when this episode is going to drop. It could be after Black Friday when people hear this. But even if they put their name and email in and it's after the launch or whatever, as long as they are putting it in before the beginning of January, they're
No
going to be
problem.
able to get in as a founding member for that. And
Sweet.
it's going to be like 80% off the regular price. So it's a
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah. That's fabulous. That is absolutely fabulous. I'm excited about the membership that's coming out and just having access to those resources, that free resource. Oh, okay. So here is one thing that let me know if you're okay talking about this, but the cost of homeopathy versus conventional big pharma.
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
like to speak about that for a second, just because I'm a mom of somebody who has allergies, right, and needs
Mm,
EpiPens. And EpiPens can be, super expensive, but they're also life-saving. And
mhm.
homeopathy is something that can be used in place of an EpiPen. So
Wow.
um, that is also diabetes, right? Diabetes and insulin is another one that can be very expensive and a life-saving medicine. And so it's good that we have remedies that are very inexpensive because they can actually help people come off of these medications and not have to spend so much money on them. So I'm not telling anyone to jump off of their medications. And I actually wanted to touch on that before when you mentioned that certain medication with the X
Mhm.
that was difficult is that using these medicines and these protocols, you can actually use them in conjunction with your conventional medicines and
Mm.
work with your doctor. And as your symptoms start to disappear, you can go back to your doctor and say, "Hey, doc, I'm starting to feel better. Can we lower these, medications and eventually come off of them?" So I'm just kind of throwing that in there as well, because from a cost perspective, you can come off
Right.
of eventually these expensive medications, including ones that are considered life-saving, like insulin for diabetes and, EpiPens for allergies and things like that. So they're super inexpensive, cost effective. And then also, you're not on the homeopathy for the rest of your life either.
Right.
Right.
That's so
Right.
awesome.
Yeah,
So
because it actually ends up uprooting often, not always, but often it will uproot the issue. And I'd like to piggyback off of what you just said, Nicole,
yeah.
about how cheap they are compared to other things. The reason for that is not because they're less effective. The reason for that is because of patent laws. So if you are producing something that is completely made of natural substances and you've not added anything to that substance, you've not added anything synthetic to it, then you are not allowed to patent that medicine. And the
Oh.
patent of a substance that is not natural, that's synthetic, is what allows these big companies to charge so much for, because it's proprietary information.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I really wanted to, I could take an arnica flower, I could grind it up and make it into a tincture. Then I could take that tincture and use a drop of it and put it into a solution and succuss it and do that multiple times until I made a homeopathic medicine from something I picked in my backyard. I didn't have to create that. I didn't have to make something that was synthetic. I just got it from my backyard because I live in the mountains and I can pick an arnica flower. So because that can happen, companies are actually there's not the competition, the same kind of competition, because there's no patent on what they're making. Anybody can
Can't
make
be an
it.
exclusive use of something.
Right. Now, I say anybody can make it. They're very
Regulate.
regulated.
Yes.
And so there substances that are used for homeopathy are often substances that in their gross form or their big molecule form is what I like to say, would not be able to be used as a medicine because it would actually be dangerous. But in homeopathic form, it's quite safe. But when you originally have that in your lab, it has to be handled with great care, right? And so as a result, that's a big reason why it is so regulated, because we're able to use substances that you can't use in herbalism, you can't use in supplementation, you can't use in any of these other modalities because it would not be safe.
Right.
But they're incredibly powerful. The remedial parts of that plant or that substance are all that's left once it is homeopathically prepared.
And I think the reason why we're kind of going that deep into it is because we want people to realize that these medicines, like we're calling them, these homeopathic medicines, they are regulated. They've had a lot of effort put into them to be made, probably more so than a lot of conventional drugs, to be quite honest. Yet we're still able to keep the costs way lower than conventional medicines because of their non-ability to patent them. So does that make sense? Like I mean, if
Yes.
we're talking like cost effective, we're saying like like a little tube of pellets that can last you months, let's say, like maybe $10, right?
Yeah.
Versus a prescription drug, depending on what kind of prescription you're on, could be anywhere from like, you're talking like $20, $30 to hundreds of dollars. EpiPens and insulin are again, they're life-saving medicines that are highly, highly expensive.
And the other thing with that is that they have an expiration date. I mean,
Right.
EpiPens, like they're, you shouldn't keep them after, what is it? 2 years? Is it a year or 2 years? So in order to keep those current, like even if you don't use, I mean, you hope you don't have to use it, right? But if you didn't use that one, then you might not feel comfortable not having a new one because you need it to work when you need it. Whereas the homeopathic remedies, even though they do have a date on them because they're required to by the FDA, we have friends who have homeopathic remedies literally from the early 1900s
That still act.
Wow.
as long as they are, stored properly and
Right.
stuff, they don't truly have an expiration date. they have one printed on them for regulation purposes, but they will continue to act. So you can have your Apis, or you can have your Ignatia, or you can have your whatever, and just know, like, if you don't need it this year, it's still good next year. So that's another cost saving thing, because you got to fork out whatever the cost of an EpiPen is. I don't even know. And then you don't need it. It's
like
not, it's not that you're out the money, because obviously
It
you want to
feels like a
have it,
waste.
but it feels
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, we spent all this and now we have to buy a new one.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So.
And we are all pinching pennies right now, just with the way that everything is going. So to be able to find reliable, inexpensive, and remedies that work and that they are effective, that I can use on myself, that I can use on my children, and I can even use on my my chickens and my cats.
Yep. Your
We-
pets and your
Thanks for mentioning that, because a lot of times I forget about that. But yes, I've used it on horses and chickens and
dogs.
cows and dogs and cats and pigs.
Even
Mhm.
plants, you can use it for your garden, you could use it for your plants. So if you're,
Wait, what?
yes, there's homeopathy for plants too. So
Okay, that's a whole new one on me. Sandra, you didn't introduce me to that one.
Well, actually, I'm about to use a homeopathic remedy on a plant that I left in my truck for 3 days accidentally after I lost my job because I took it out of my office.
Oh no.
My favorite plant, her name is Juliet, and
Oh.
I love her so much. And she's just such a beautiful, flowing little girl, and I want her to live. And so she is looking pretty dehydrated. So I'm just gonna try some China with her. I'm gonna make a
Okay.
little solution, and I'm gonna put it into her little pot and see if that China will help her with her dehydration.
Okay. I want to hear how it turns out, because I need to know these things. I do have an aloe vera that's looking a little sad, so I'm not sure if there might be something that would help perk it up.
If
But
it's that, might need Ignatia.
it might, there we go. I just need to give my aloe vera plant Ignition. I'll try that. I have some. Oh,
Yeah.
y'all.
To mention too, really quick, if
Oh,
I
please, yes.
reasons that I feel like, like with your clients and who you help with, with their situations and stuff. One of the reasons for our name, Simple Homeopathy, is kind of a pun on homeopathy, of course, but it's because, I mean, the name came actually from one of Nicole's clients, and she is using homeopathy to treat herself and her children, and is seeing such amazing success and she is just like a sponge, like absorbing every molecule of knowledge that she can from Nicole and from the studies and things. And she said that she's like, it's not homeopathy, it's hopeopathy, because it gives you hope. And so many times when you've been on a prescription, or whether you or not you've been on a prescription, even we'll say, sometimes when you're dealing with like the anxiety, the depression, the fear, all of those things, you feel hopeless and you don't feel like there's a way out. And sometimes I have clients who have been on those drugs that we won't name for many years, and they've not had any improvement. They've had no change.
And they might even have debilitating side effects.
Yes, they could.
Right.
It's actually made their situation worse. And so that is something I would love to say to your listeners, is that homeopathy provides hope, and it provides a way for people to kind of see that light at the end of the tunnel, where they're like, okay, maybe I can conquer this, or I can heal from this. And again, it does it in such a gentle way where we still experience those human emotions that are so important to feel. And because we are emotional beings,
Right.
but it kind of helps when you're kind of stuck in that loop of like repetitive cycle of
Negative
grief and
feedback
negative
loop.
feedback. And it kind of helps like boot you into a new path. And that's our part, and our mission is to share that hope with as many people as we can. Like that is truly what our goal is to do, and to enable others to then like ripple effect that out, to get that out to as many people as we can.
I love it. And that was a great explanation. It really was. So thank you for that, Heather. Okay, guys. So I could talk homeopathy all day because it is absolutely fascinating. And I'm so excited about it. But we're going to wrap it up. But I do want to let everybody know, I want to let you know that homeopathy has been so great for my family and has been just such a relief for us to be able to use something natural and inexpensive that works and that I know I don't have to worry about side effects with my kiddos. Now, what I'm going to do is we'll put the link for Simple Homeopathy Wellness so you can sign up for their newsletter and get their freebie because, oh my goodness, I'm signing up for that. And then also their information for socials and how to get in touch with them so that if one of them really resonates with you and you want to go deeper and further, you can contact them and move into that for yourself. So, ladies, thank you so much for your time today. This has been fun. I have learned, and I'm excited to get to share this with others who are ready to do something different. We want to do different. We don't want to do more. And so I will bid you guys good day. And remember, I want you to remember you are powerful for the kingdom of heaven and you are dangerous to the system of darkness. It is time to rise up into your power, place, privilege, rights, and responsibilities as a daughter of the King. Have a wonderful day.
That just gave me chills.
Chills, I know.
Yes.
All right, my dear, that's going to do it for this episode of the Rise Up and Roar podcast, where we help Christian women overcome overwhelm, navigate the negative, and redeem the courageous life that God has called each of us to live. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Grab my free resources on my website and follow me on Instagram at Mrs. Carrie Hurley. Have a great day.